So 30 years, 1 month and 28 days later, Liverpool are once again champions of the top flight of English football. Matt Critchley was there for the celebrations last night at Anfield. He'll join us today to talk about Liverpool's big championship title, plus just one game on the schedule today for La Liga, but it's a big one for Champions League hopefuls Sevilla as they take on Real Valladolid at the Sánchez-Pizjuán. Plus, we'll look ahead to the rest of match day 32 with Barcelona facing a really tough away test in Balaidos against the resurgent Celta Vigo, while the league leaders Real Madrid are away to last-placed Espanyol. That's all coming up next on Sports Burst. Hello, welcome into Sports Burst. I am Andres Cordero. George Metellus joining me in a moment, and we'll be with beIN Sports English football correspondent Matt Critchley in just a second. But here's a look at what's coming up today on beIN Sports. As mentioned, Sevilla taking on Real Valladolid, opening up round 32 in the Spanish top flight. That's on beIN Sports and beIN Sports in Espanyol at 3:55 p.m. But before that, little Turkish Super League action for you as Beşiktaş take on Konyaspor. That begins at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, joining us now, it's been a long wait for Liverpool fans to celebrate a domestic league title. It's been a long night for Matt Critchley, beIN Sports English football correspondent, who joins us from outside of Anfield. Tell us what the scene is like where you are now and how the last 15 or 16 hours have been, Matt.
Yes, Andreas, it's the day after the night before because, as you said, Liverpool fans and Liverpool Football Club have waited an awfully long time. 30 years of hurt. 1990, their last league championship. So when it was confirmed last night when Manchester City were beaten at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea that Liverpool, that Liverpool would be champions once again, then they very much were going to enjoy themselves. And of course, it's not necessarily what we would condone. It's not necessarily that we support that Liverpool fans gathered outside Anfield because we're still in an area of social distancing here in the UK. But what we understood was that it was a very fluid situation. The police were here and they were trying to manage it, and it was perhaps understandable with emotions running high that after 30 years many Liverpool fans would come here to Anfield last night, and perhaps 15 or even 20,000 did by the end of the night, to enjoy the atmosphere, to celebrate, to toast their successful team who are league champions once again. So
just to clarify there for a moment, you're estimating around 15 to 20,000 outside of Anfield last night celebrating this league title, correct?
Yeah, when we first arrived here at the stadium, which was in the UK about 9:30, 9:45 local time, that was sort of midway through the second half of the Chelsea versus Manchester City game, and there was perhaps 5, maybe 10 people dotted around Anfield. It was very quiet here and we didn't expect too much of a fuss. When the result was confirmed and when it was announced that Liverpool would be Premier League champions for the first time, it seemed within 10 minutes the numbers swelled. We went to 500 and then 1,000 very quickly. Within half an hour we probably went up to 5,000, and by 11 o'clock, maybe 11:30 local time, I would estimate between 15 and 20,000 people packed all the way around all the 4 sides of this famous ground. And whilst people were trying to maintain some level of social distancing, obviously that was quite difficult. As I say, there was a heavy police presence. They were trying to control the crowds, but it was all good-natured, not too much trouble, I don't think, and not too much problems in terms of what we heard back from the police. So that's a positive, although we have to put all that into the context of the current pandemic we're living in with COVID-19, and we have to say it's not something we condone once again. But yeah, fascinating scenes here last night, Andreas, in many respects, because it was 30 years in the making, and you wonder what it would have been like had we not been in the current worldwide situation.
Yeah, no question. And it is fascinating for me for a couple of reasons. So help us understand, because yes, it has been a 30-year wait for that domestic league title. But in the last 15 years, you're talking about a Liverpool side that have been champions of Europe twice, as recently as just last season. Just help us understand why this is such a much bigger deal. Is it the distance sort of making the heart grow fonder, or is it bigger than that?
Yeah, I think you have to go back to the history of this football club to remember that in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, with legendary managers, the likes of Bill Shankly, Bob Paisley, Joe Fagan and Kenny Dalglish, winning the league championship, the title here in England, was the bread and butter for this football club. They won it so often, let's say, I don't have the exact figure, but probably around 15 times over the course of those 30 years. So to go the next 30 years without winning it at all has been a real shock. And the fact that they were regularly the English champions, once or twice the European champions in the 70s and the 80s, meant that this side was regarded as the best in England and probably the best in the world. Manchester United were a mere afterthought on just a handful of league titles back in 1990 when Liverpool last won it. And then from there, Sir Alex Ferguson has come in and taken Manchester United past Liverpool's total of what was 18 league titles, and that hurt the people of this football club, that hurt its supporters, because Manchester United were all of a sudden the best club in England, the best club in the world. So for Liverpool to get back on the winning trail, to have another English title in their books after a 30-year wait meant so much. That the Champions League is a wonderful competition and very prestigious, and Liverpool love to be in it and love to win it, as you said, as they did last year. But the wait has been so long for this league championship that they're going to, as you can hear behind me, enjoy this one for a good few weeks to come.
Lastly, Matt, we just put up a moment ago a tweet from LeBron James, who is a minority owner of this Liverpool club, obviously Fenway Sports, led by John Henry. We can't help but see sort of a tinge of the American flavor to this title on this side of the pond. We know that the previous American ownership of Hicks and Gillette, probably not the most popular, but with Christian Pulisic's goal sort of setting the tone for City to drop points to make that moment when it occurred. And I'm just curious how Liverpool fans are feeling about the current ownership of the club in lieu of the celebrations.
Yeah, I think you said a tinge of American influence. I think it goes a lot deeper than that. The Fenway Sports Group, the FSG, have had a massive influence here at Liverpool Football Club in the decade now since they took over. They arrived very cool, very calm, very understated, and they declared their intention to put Liverpool back to the top of English, European and world football, and many people question their methods. There's been some level of resistance over those 10 years from Liverpool supporters. Not all decisions have been met with universal approval, but when they recruited Jurgen Klopp in 2015 to replace Brendan Rodgers, it was the smartest move they could have ever made, because he has been the catalyst, he has been the man to bring the glory days back to Liverpool. He had a wonderful year last year, winning the Champions League and finishing just a point behind Manchester City. And now we're in a situation where the ownership, and Mike Gordon, who's a key member of that ownership and basically runs the football club on a day-to-day basis, he is now a hero himself. John Henry and Tom Werner, if they were here, they would probably not be able to walk down the street, because they would be mobbed by Liverpool fans who are now in love with everything to do with FSG and the ownership of the football club. They've invested, they've brought the likes of Virgil van Dijk and Alisson, big money moves here that have made the difference. They brought Jurgen Klopp here, and for that Liverpool fans will be eternally grateful.
Matt Critchley, it's always great to hear from you. Enjoy what looks to be a bright, sunny day in Liverpool today. All right, also joining me on the show today, George Metellus. And George, just want to remind everyone, this is sort of interactive, so we do like to hear from you. We're going to check in with some of the comments so far. Visam Tapo saying, what a win for Chelsea. Way to read the room, Wissam. Yes, it's a 2-1 win for Chelsea, but it means so much more for Liverpool. Brendan Burns, also Pulisic makes an impact every single time he's on the pitch. Love it, going to force Lampard to start him every single game. I can see where this conversation is going to go today, and it's going to have very little to do with Liverpool, a lot more to do with Pulisic. George, let's start with your thoughts here on Liverpool's big title win 30 years later.
Well, first of all, I got to say happy birthday to my mom, Danielle Beauvoir. She had a birthday today, so happy birthday to my mother there, and also my sister-in-law as well. But Liverpool, I mean, they deserved it. But when the pandemic broke out, they were, 25 points ahead. They had only lost one game all season in the Premier League. So they were clearly the better team. It was just a matter of time before they clinched the title, and still have, a 23-point lead over Manchester City. So it's deserved. And Jurgen Klopp, to me, has put his stamp as the best manager on the planet right now. And it's good to see Liverpool fans celebrating such a long title drought. As a Miami Dolphin fan, I understand. So I can sympathize with them a little bit. And look, for that rivalry of Liverpool and Manchester United, now that it's, 20 for United in terms of Premier League and First Division titles compared to 19 with Liverpool, it makes that rivalry even more intense. So congratulations to Liverpool. They deserve it. They play great football. That we keep talking about MSG and BBC, but how about Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino, and Mohamed Salah? I guess the MF,
we don't have to go there.
Or MSF, whatever, FSM, whatever you want, however you want to do it. I think those three might be the most lethal trio in all of world football. They deserve it.
Let's look a little closer to sort of the football we're covering on a day-to-day basis here, because Matchday 31 is in the books in La Liga. Matchday 32 kicking off today. Before looking ahead to that Sevilla Valladolid game, which is going to get things underway in match day 32. Let's just sort of recap what happened recently, just yesterday at the end of match day 31. Valencia dropping points away to Eibar. And I would contest, George, that Eibar right now are as fun as virtually any team in Spain to watch. In part to do with some teams sort of being slow out of the restart, like a Real Sociedad, but rewarded with their high press, high intensity football here as they beat Valencia 1-0 at Ipurua, albeit on an own goal by this man, Jeffrey Kondogbia.
Yeah, they deserve the victory. And remember, they got a clean sheet in this game against a Valencia squad that, if you look on paper, and we know matches aren't played on paper, but if you look on paper, Valencia has a very good attacking squad. They should be able to score on Eibar, but they didn't. So Eibar defensively did very well. Remember, Jose Luis Mendilibar, their manager, was suspended for this game. So they managed to beat a top team, although Valencia is struggling this season. 1-0 at home, getting a clean sheet. They deserved that goal. Even though it was an own goal, they still were aggressive in that moment to get there and force the Valencia defense to make a mistake. And then they got some excellent goalkeeping as well and shut it down defensively. So well done to Eibar in that victory. And I think that Valencia did not have a shot on target. I know they didn't have a shot on target in the first half. They might have finished with just one or two the entire game. So credit to Eibar's defense. And if if you're a fan and you want the small clubs to stay up and you like that story, you want to see Eibar to continue to get 3 points and remain in the first division.
Yeah, full disclosure, I have a couple of shares in Eibar from that season when they were promoted back-to-back years from the Segunda B into La Liga and didn't have a big enough operating budget to operate in La Liga legally. So they raised funds worldwide, bought a couple of shares. I am invested in Eibar staying up, but I also enjoy watching their football. And this is massive points for Mendilibar's men, even in his absence, because Eibar are just one spot above the drop zone. These 3 points are crucial for them. It puts them now, 6 points above Mallorca, who are third bottom at the moment. Those are huge, huge points. And you look at the teams that are competing for that fourth Champions League spot, right outside of Barcelona, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico. They've all dropped points in match day 31. Sevilla held to a draw, Getafe held to a draw, the same for Villarreal. Real Sociedad lose, so too do Valencia, Granada a draw. Nobody wants that fourth place in La Liga at the moment, George.
Yeah, it really is a toss-up right now. I mean, Sevilla in the driver's seat for that fourth place, that last Champions League spot, but Sevilla have, 3 consecutive draws heading into this match of today against Real Valladolid. So anything is possible. And look, Villarreal could make a late charge. They certainly have been a surprise in terms of challenging for that last Champions League spot. So you're talking about 5 teams for 1 spot. That makes this La Liga Santander season, and the rest of it, I should say, even more intriguing.
Yeah, one of the teams that we're hoping to be in the fight for Europe this season, Betis, they hired Ruby over the summer window because they wanted somebody who could be a bit more pragmatic, who wasn't maybe as hard-headed when it comes to tactics as Quique Setien was. They saw him as maybe too adventurous, too daring, but they've since fired Ruby. In the first game with their interim manager, Betis, back to winning ways as they beat last place Espanyol.
Yeah, with Alexis Trujillo as the manager, they went with 3 in the back. They played pretty much a 3-4-3, giving Nabil Fekir a little more room to operate. And while they didn't get a lot of goals, they got the goal that mattered. It was off a header by Marc Bartra, and they picked up the victory against Espanyol. And look, Espanyol, bottom of the table. I mean, they had a great chance here. Wula, he should have put that one away. Joel Robles with a big save there. But it doesn't look good for Espanyol. I think they're going to go down to the second division. And Betis, they needed those 3 points. And maybe Alexis Trujillo can do enough to get them into the top half of the table, because I don't think Real Betis is going to finish in a Champions League or a Europa League spot.
No, Betis were sort of more focused on what was below them than what was ahead. They're 11 points clear of the drop. They weren't in any serious danger of relegation. I don't know that that's necessarily why Ruby was let go, but rather because the team had been sputtering well before the pandemic break, the 3-month absence. Given that they'd had beaten Real Madrid 2-1, that was a massive win, but it was their only win in something like 12 games before the return to football. And so Betis, again, comfortably away from the relegation zone, but not a real threat to the top 6, to the Europa League places either. I want to show you something here, George, because we've put together a form table of just these last 4 rounds, just the 4 rounds since the restart. And it's remarkable what teams have started strong and what teams have not. The only team with perfect points is Real Madrid, and by virtue of that, they've taken over the top spot on the head-to-head tiebreaker over Barcelona. They remain level on points on the actual table, but on these 4-game tables, they are 2 points clear of a block of 3 teams with an identical record: Barcelona, Atletico, and Villarreal, all on 10 from a possible 12 points. Celta, who again have been in relegation danger and not out of the heat of that fight yet, have been one of the most impressive teams since the restart. And Real Sociedad, who were the talk of the town, really, in La Liga for much of the season. We talked so much about the performance of Martin Odegaard, of young Alexander Isak. I've been raving about Mikel Merino and Porto. 1 point from 4 games for La Real. I'll let you take that any which way you want, George, whether you want to talk about the teams at the top or the teams at the bottom. But Real Sociedad's struggles really stand out to me, given the talent in that club, how they've just sputtered out of this restart gate under Imanol Alguacil.
Yeah, it's surprising. It's very surprising. I mean, they got the draw against Osasuna, and it's been 3 straight losses ever since. I don't know how to explain it.
Right.
I watch them playing. I just don't see, maybe it's something they're lacking in the final third because they're still getting most of the possession. The passing looks pretty crisp, but they're just not getting that last touch. Isak is not scoring. Willian Jose maybe has 1 goal since the restart. So maybe it's the finishing that's becoming a problem for Real Sociedad. They were in 4th place before the restart. Now they are out of a Europa League spot. So that's how far they have fallen. So that's definitely a surprise for me. But to be positive, look at Villarreal. We saw the table there, 10 points. They're undefeated. They perform very well, but they have a murderous schedule coming up. I mean, they have Barça, they have Real Madrid, they have Getafe, they have Real Sociedad. It's going to be tough for Villarreal going forward, but the fact that they were able to get a draw in their last match, I believe against Sevilla, if I remember correctly, then they're looking strong there to maybe even get that 4th place spot. It would be really cool. It would be something positive to see Villarreal finish 4th, get into the Champions next season. But it's really extreme. Villarreal have been excellent. Real Sociedad have been a nightmare.
So, and again, Real Madrid, the only team with perfect points. That game against Real Sociedad, 3 very close VAR decisions, all going Real Madrid's way. But in my view, all the correct decision, whether it was marginal or big, I think they've got those right. And so maybe an improved performance by La Real against arguably the toughest opponent currently in La Liga in Real Madrid, but they came away on the wrong side of a lopsided loss. And again, all 3 points going to the capital club, who are top of the table. Let's look ahead to today's round. As I look at some of the comments here, props to you, Dre, for getting A-Bar shares from Mark Golden. I've been following them since they got up to the top flight. Always got a soft spot for teams like them after Rayo Vallecano. And you know what? It stands out to me that they pressed the way Paco Gémez' Rayo used to. This is round 32 in La Liga. Sevilla, Real Valladolid getting it underway. They have the stage all to themselves today, and then a very busy weekend, which includes Barcelona's trip to a resurgent Celta Vigo, Atletico Madrid at home against a difficult-to-beat Deportivo Alavés. That'll be at the Wanda Metropolitano on Sunday. And also on Sunday, last-placed Espanyol, in real serious threat of the drop, take on league leaders Real Madrid. The round closing out with 2 Champions League hopefuls in Getafe against Real Sociedad. Let's look ahead to today's opener in round 32. It's Sevilla against Valladolid. What have we made of Sevilla in the restart? We saw where they fall on that form table at the moment. They have been dropping points. Just 1 win. It was their first game back. Since then, draw. Is it imperative that they get back to winning ways today at the Sánchez-Pizjuán? One of those draws, it should be said, was against Barcelona.
Yeah, that was the scoreless draw against Barcelona. Look, we talk about Messi dependencia, Benzema dependencia, if you believe that, for Real Madrid. Well, I think Sevilla is suffering from a little of Lucas Ocampos dependencia. Let's be honest. He is their best player. He's their best attacking option in terms of even making assists that lead to goals. He's the leading goal scorer. I mean, him and Eber Banega are the 2 most important players. If you talk about Banega in the midfield and then Ocampos in that final attacking third. And Sevilla goes as Lucas Ocampos goes. So if he plays well, which he should, because Valladolid is a team that's not having to worry about relegation. The bottom half, we're not having to worry about relegation. So Sevilla should be able to beat them. And if Lucas Ocampos starts and plays well, I think they'll handle Real Valladolid. But if he doesn't play well, they struggle a little bit. So we have to look out to see how well Lucas Ocampos plays, because it might be getting to the point where you have to say Sevilla are dependent on Lucas Ocampos.
Which is wild, considering they started the season with Wissam Ben Yedder, who finished as Ligue 1's top goal scorer, I believe, when that season was canceled. They had Chicharito, shipped him off to LA Galaxy during the January transfer window. They kept Luke de Jong, who still gets on the end of a ton of chances. He did score that goal that you saw there from Munir, rather. But it does seem like a team that, despite all of that sort of attacking talent, depends so heavily on a guy who they just signed this past summer in Lucas Ocampos.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody's going to have to step up and help out. We saw Munir score a golazo in the 2-2 against the previous round. Sevilla, they drew 2-2 with Villarreal, and a couple of golazos there with Sergio Escudero and Munir. So someone else is going to have to step up and not just score goals, but also create chances. Lucas Ocampos creates chances with his pace and his dribbling and his audacity. attacking at opposition defenses. So Lucas Ocampos is going to need some help. I'm interested to see who Julen Lopetegui will start. Will Lucas Ocampos start? Remember, with all the congested games, will he even start, and who he will start with against Valladolid?
Here is a look at where and how you can catch that game. Sevilla against Real Valladolid. That's coming up today, opening up match day 32 in La Liga as the marathon of binge on beIN continues. Coverage starting off at 3:55 p.m. Eastern. Sevilla against Real Valladolid. George and I will be in studio ahead of that match for you right here on beIN Sports. You're looking ahead to the weekend, George. Let's focus in on the top two because Barcelona and Real Madrid still level on points. Madrid do have the inside track by virtue of the better head-to-head record in the Clásicos. We'll start with Barcelona. You would have thought before the 3-month break, a trip to Celta Vigo, Balaidos, no big deal for Barca or for anyone. Has not been the case since the restart. Celta are on fire at the moment. They've just added former Barcelona youth, Nolito, to that squad as well. They're firing on all cylinders at the moment, the Galician club.
Yeah, 6-0 against Alaves, and then they got a big victory last round, so 7 goals in the last 2 games. But don't expect a lot of goals in this game. I know both teams have excellent players. Iago Aspas obviously is an icon for Celta, and we know Barca can score a lot of goals on anyone. But defensively, both of these teams have been surprisingly good. 3 straight clean sheets for Celta. Barcelona have not allowed a goal since the restart. And they have, 6 clean sheets in the last 7 games. The only game that they conceded a goal was the 2-0 loss in the Clásico, obviously before the league paused. So don't be surprised if this is a 1-0 game. If this is maybe even a scoreless draw. I don't think it will be, but don't be surprised if these two teams play a very low-scoring game because of how defensively they've been. Now, I know Barca's defense is predicated on the fact that they control so much possession, but Celta have been able to keep a clean sheet the last couple of games. It's given them some breathing room away from the relegation zone. So I expect this to be a low-scoring game. Now, hopefully we'll get a lot of goals, but don't be surprised if this is a 1-0 type game between Celta and Barcelona, and especially if Griezmann starts. We don't know how he's going to respond after being subbed off in the last game, and his cohesion with Messi and Suarez hasn't been that strong, and Suarez still recovering from the injury. So don't be surprised if this is a low-scoring game between two teams that haven't conceded pretty much, I think, 1 goal between them in the restart.
Reading some of the numbers, though, it's a perfect example to me of how we can sort of warp the stats to tell stories that we wanted to tell, because it said there are 7 goals in the last 2 games, as you mentioned, sure, but 6 of those against 10-men Alaves. They did get the 1-0 win on a penalty in match day 31. And I believe that 3 games before the 6-0 for Celta were all games in which they scored just 1 goal. The only reason I bring that up is because they have a lot more talent than I think their relegation fight or the goals have suggested this season, with guys like Rafinha, Nolito to that mix, and of course Iago Aspas, who is Celta's spirit animal. The other co-leader, we can call them at the moment, really league leader, is Real Madrid because of that head-to-head tiebreaker. They're away to last place Espanyol. We've talked about Espanyol's struggles. Is this a straightforward 3 points for Real Madrid at the Cornellà Prat on Sunday?
I think it is. I think Espanyol are dead. I think they're going to get relegated. Whether they finish last place or 19th or 18th, I don't think it matters. I think they're going to get relegated, and I think Real Madrid, the way Zidane is managing his rotations, it seems like it doesn't matter. He had Bale start the last game, and they still managed to win the game, and Bale didn't really hurt the team. So if he's been able to make all the right decisions in terms of his starting 11, in terms of his substitutions, and Espanyol just haven't put up enough of a fight to take down any team. So I think this is a 3 points, pretty easy 3 points for Real Madrid.
That is such a silky finish from Vinicius, and we do not say that often. I would say that's his best finish in a Real Madrid shirt. And speaking of finish, remember this goal from Sergio Ramos? My goodness. We only have about 60 seconds left here, George, before we have to turn this over. Any particular game, maybe one we haven't talked about, that you're looking forward to this weekend?
Well, I've been praising Villarreal, so I'm going to say Villarreal against Valencia, 2 teams from the Valencian community. I think if Villarreal can pick up 3 points, they put pressure on Sevilla for 4th place. I think they move ahead of Getafe in the table, if I remember correctly. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Villarreal respond, and Javi Calleja has done an excellent job with Villarreal in the restart with 3 straight 1-0 victories before the 2-2 against Sevilla. I think if they pick up 3 points against Valencia, which I think they will, they are a serious contender for that last Champions League spot. Villarreal versus Valencia is going to be a good one.
Yeah, worth noting, Valencia continue to have sort of inter-squad drama. Remember, they fired the manager Marcelino earlier in the season. The players decided not to talk to the press. They didn't like the way the thing was handled. It really created some pressure on Celades, who had taken over and seemed to be doing a really good job. Albert Celades at the helm of that club, but now had a reported bust-up with the Uruguayan striker Maxi Gomez. It turns out he tried to take Maxi Gomez off the squad, essentially to punish the player. The players themselves revolted, and the manager was forced to capitulate and put Maxi back on the matchday squad. So it's not all going all that great for Valencia off the pitch. And you mentioned Villarreal's schedule coming up. Valencia, Betis, Barcelona, Getafe, and Real Sociedad ahead for the Yellow Submarine. That's going to do it for us. Our thanks to Matt Critchley, who joined us earlier, and to Metellus, who will be with you on set on the Extra all day today. I'm Andres Cordero saying so long. Until next time.